You won't believe how one old boathouse completely changed my life. I wasn't even looking to buy property that day. I was just scrolling through listings out of boredom when I saw it, an old wooden boathouse sitting quietly at the edge of a small, forgotten lake. The photos were grainy, but there was something about it, maybe the peaceful reflection of the water, or the way the trees leaned over like they were guarding a secret. It felt like a place time had forgotten, and I couldn't resist checking it out. When I visited, the boathouse looked even rougher than the pictures. The roof sagged, moss crept up the walls, and the dock creaked under my feet. But when I looked out over the calm, glassy lake, something clicked. I could see the potential. Early morning coffee on the dock, quiet evenings watching the sunset, fishing with friends. It was exactly the kind of peace I'd been craving after years of city noise and endless deadlines. The real estate agent told me the price was low because no one wanted to deal with the limited water access clause. To me, that sounded like a small problem with a big opportunity. I bought it on the spot. For the first few weeks, I poured my heart into restoring it. I painted the walls, rebuilt the dock, even found old lanterns to hang from the beams. Every evening, I'd sit on the deck and feel the cool breeze off the lake. For the first time in years, I felt grounded, free, and proud. But little did I know, that peace was about to be shattered. Because while I thought I'd bought a simple lakeside retreat, I had actually stepped right into a battlefield with the HOA. It was a bright, peaceful Sunday morning, the kind where the lake looked like glass and the only sounds were birds and rippling water. I had just brewed a cup of coffee and was admiring my work on the freshly painted boathouse when I saw 3 figures marching down the path. Clipboard, sunglasses, matching smug expressions. You know the type, the self-appointed rulers of any neighborhood. Leading the group was a woman with sharp features and a voice that could slice through concrete. "Good morning," she said, in that tone that meant bad news is coming. "I'm Karen, president of the Lakeview Homeowners Association. We need to discuss your structure here." I blinked, half confused, half amused. "My structure? You mean my boathouse? I own this property." Karen frowned. "This boathouse violates several HOA guidelines. It wasn't approved by our board, and it encroaches on community-managed lake space. You'll need to remove it immediately." I almost laughed. "I'm not part of your community," I told her. "This land isn't within your subdivision." She gave me that tight, fake smile people use when they think they're smarter than you. "The lake is under our jurisdiction. All waterfront property owners must comply with HOA regulations." Before I could respond, she handed me a notice, a formal order to remove unapproved structure within 14 days. The fine, $500 a day if I didn't comply. I stood there stunned, the paper fluttering in the breeze. "You're making a mistake," I said, but she was already walking away. As their footsteps faded, my peaceful retreat suddenly felt smaller. The calm lake didn't seem so friendly anymore. That morning, I learned something important. The HOA wasn't just nosy. They were ready for war. From that day on, it felt like the HOA made it their mission to make my life miserable. The first violation notice appeared the next morning, taped right to my door like a scarlet letter. It claimed my dock was built without proper authorization. The next day, another one appeared, accusing me of unapproved exterior paint color. Then came excessive noise after hours, even though I was living alone. And the loudest sound around was the splash of a fish jumping. It didn't stop there. I caught a man from the HOA taking photos of my property from a kayak one evening. When I confronted him, he said, "Just documenting violations, sir," as if trespassing on my lake was completely normal. A week later, a letter arrived claiming my boathouse posed a safety hazard to nearby residents, people who didn't even live within shouting distance. Karen, the HOA president, called me twice to offer a chance to comply voluntarily. Her tone was syrupy sweet but dripping with threat. "We'd hate to involve legal action," she said. "It's much easier if you just remove the structure." I tried explaining, again, that my property wasn't part of their HOA. But she insisted they controlled all activities on and around Lakeview Lake. I began to wonder if they actually believed their own nonsense. Things escalated fast. I got letters from their legal department, notices from supposed county inspectors, and even had a fake warning left by my mailbox about environmental violations. It was harassment, pure and simple. I started losing sleep, wondering if I'd made a huge mistake buying this place. But then one night, as I sat surrounded by paperwork and frustration, I decided to fight back. And that's when I discovered something that changed everything. Determined to end the madness, I gathered every scrap of paper tied to my property. Old deeds, survey maps, legal descriptions, everything. I spent hours cross-referencing documents, tracing boundary lines, and comparing maps from the county archives. At first, it felt like I was chasing smoke. But then, buried inside an old land survey from the 1970s, I found it, the key detail that turned the entire situation upside down. The survey clearly showed that my property line didn't stop at the boathouse's edge. It extended well into the lake. In fact, the legal description confirmed that I owned a large section of the lake itself, including the exact area where the HOA's community dock and private beach were built. My hands trembled as I reread it, realizing that the HOA had been using my property for years without permission. I drove straight to the county clerk's office the next morning to double-check. The clerk confirmed everything. My land rights were valid, recorded, and legally binding. The HOA had simply assumed ownership without ever verifying the boundaries. That night, I couldn't stop smiling. For weeks they had bullied me, threatened me, and acted like they ruled the water. But in reality, they were trespassing on my lake. I decided to play it cool and let them keep digging their own hole. When Karen showed up again, waving another notice in my face, I calmly said, "You might want to double-check who actually owns this lake before sending more threats." The confused look on her face was priceless. A few days later, I sent the HOA a cease and desist letter through my lawyer, along with a bill charging rent for every dock and boat sitting on my water. That's when things got interesting. When the HOA received my lawyer's letter and the rental invoice for $3,000 per month, all hell broke loose. Within 2 days, my phone rang non-stop. Angry board members, furious emails, even threats of a defamation lawsuit. They were scrambling, desperate to keep control. Karen called last, her voice sharp as broken glass. "You can't charge us rent," she snapped. "That's community property." I smiled, letting her rant. "Actually, Karen," I said, "the county records say otherwise. You've been using my lake without permission for years." Silence. Then the line went dead. Their lawyer tried to intimidate mine, but when the county confirmed my ownership in writing, the HOA's entire argument collapsed. The truth spread quickly among residents, and they were furious. People realized their expensive lake fees and boat permits were based on lies. Homeowners started demanding refunds, audits, and Karen's resignation. The HOA board held an emergency meeting that turned into chaos. One resident leaked a recording online, Karen shouting, blaming everyone else, insisting I had tricked them. But documents don't lie. Within a week, she was forced to step down. Eventually, the HOA had no choice but to settle. They paid damages for unauthorized use, removed their docks from my property, and issued a public apology. Watching their crews dismantle their precious, private pier, was poetic justice. I put up a new sign where their dock once stood. Private property. Lake access by owner's permission only. Now, the lake is peaceful again. No more fines. No more threats. Just me, my boathouse, and the water I legally own. Sometimes, I sit on my dock at sunset, coffee in hand, and smile. They wanted me gone, but in the end, I didn't just win. I owned everything.